Bringing you the latest news from around the world and here at home, I'm Sandra Ferdinando.
And I'm Zeenat Musafir. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines.
Army Commander assures security. Minister Tilak Marapana visits America, preparing for a meeting with Secretary of State. No confidence motion signed by 64 MPs against Minister Wishad Badiuddin handed over to the Speaker. People of Katuapitiya unhappy over events held to provide compensation.
News in details and in local news. Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake convened a media briefing today.
We request the general public of this country to have faith in the armed forces.
ඔබතුමා කියනවා අමුදාවෙන් විශ්වාස තබන්න කියලා. ඒ වුණාට අර වීඩියෝ පට දෙකක් තුනක් එළියේ මේ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා අමුදාවේ සාය ඇතුව මේ ක්‍රියා ඊයේ පෙරේදා සිද්ධියට.
මම දැනට විනාඩි 5ක් ප්‍රමාද වෙන්න හේතු වුණේ.
I was 5 minutes late to get here because I was showed a video again at the Security Council. 95% of the investigations conducted into that video footage is incomplete. Soldiers of the Sri Lankan army are innocent.
Those power, they are not involved in such a situation. අපි පෙන්නුම් කිරීමක්
I will be showing the entire world that the soldier was not at any instance inviting the group in. He was putting the strap of his weapon around his arm. That is what is seen here.
අවියේ තියෙන පටිය දමා ගැනීම තමයි එතන පෙන්නුම් කරන්නේ.
අද දවසේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ විශ්වාස භංග යෝජනාවක් ඉදිරිපත් වුණා රිෂාඩ් බදියුද්දීන් අමාත්‍යවරයාට එරෙහිව. ඒකේ පළවෙනි කාරණයෙන්ම ඔබතුමාගේ නම සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකයි මේ ප්‍රශ්න යොමු කරන්නේ. තරංගුවට ගත සැකකරුවන් නිදහස් කරන්න කියලා ඔබතුමාට බලපෑම් කළ බවට ඔබතුමා මේ 5 වෙනිදා පුවත්පතකට ප්‍රකාශයක් කරලා තියෙන දේ සම්බන්ධව.
මම බලපෑමට වඩා මම කැමතියි කියන්න ඒක.
More than influence, I would like to call it request that was made. When a certain person was arrested, the said minister gave me a phone call. I gave him 2 answers. This can be interpreted as a request or influence. He made a request from me, the army commander. To the first question he directed to me, I said I will look into the matter and let him know after he mentioned the name. The second time as well, I had not looked into it. The third time I said there is a person like that and I asked him to call me in 1.5 years. I said that because I can legally detain him for 1.5 years.
තියෙන අවුරුදු කමාරක් එයා සිරගත කරන්න.
පුද්ගලයාගේ නම අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් වෙයිද දන්නේ ඇරස් කරපු
මම ඔක්කොම මොහොමඩ්ලා හිටියේ ඒකේ. කොහමද ඒක දෙයිවලින් කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. මගේ දෙයිවලින් අත්අඩංගුවට එක තමයි මම ඇහුවේ.
ඇත්තටම බුද්ධාංශයේ කඩාවැටීමක් සිදු වී තියෙනවද?
කඩාවැටීමට වඩා මම එතනදී පාවිච්චි කළ වචනේ තමයි පසුබෑම කියන එක.
පසුගිය කාලයේ මාධ්‍යවේදී කීට් නොයා පැහැරගෙන යාම සහ පැහැර දීමට සම්බන්ධ මේජර් ප්‍රභාත් බුලත්වත්ත නම් නිලධාරියා සම්බන්ධව ගැටලුවක් තිබෙනවා. ඔහු නැවතත් චූදිතයෙක් ලෙස ඔහු නඩුවක ප්‍රධාන චූදිතයා ලෙස පැවතිද්දී නැවතත් බුද්ධාංශ සේවයට සක්‍රිය ලෙස දායක කර ගැනීම සම්බන්ධයෙන්
පොතේ මම නිවැරදි කිරීමක් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඔහු නැවත බුද්ධාංශය නෙමෙයි සේවය කරන්නේ.
I must make a correction there. He is not serving in the intelligence units. He is serving directly under me. I make this statement with responsibility. Everybody knows the service he provided in the Eastern Province. I need his services for the country right now. If I need his services, the law has not barred me from using his services. He is a paid officer of the army during the past 2 years. I am doing this for the sake of you all. He cannot escape the investigations that are being conducted against him. No one in the military involved in previous incidents can escape through incidents. They cannot escape me. They cannot escape the law. But I will acquire his services as well. To know a thief, you need to ask a thief. To know a monk, you need to ask a monk.
Meanwhile, the army commander spoke about the memorials organized for those who lost their lives in the war.
They have already planned their commemorative festivals or events. We are very much aware of it and we are in the process of discussing with the political leadership in the north at the armed forces how best we can accommodate their request. And I wish that they will not get involved in a violence situation in particular celebrations. Then only the law of the land has to be utilized, whether it is emergency or not.
Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake further spoke of the use of minimum force by Sri Lanka army soldiers deployed for security.
You don't want to use maximum force, but at the same time, if you have these big groups that are going out of control and they're doing a lot of damage to people's property, possibly to life, at what point do you actually start making that shift?
that all depends on exactly what is happening on the ground and the situation. So I being the army commander, by staying in Colombo or some other place, I will not be able to exactly decide when to fire. But it is all up to the ground troops to understand the situation which is going beyond the control and that they have to fire. So they have been given orders to fire. So it's very unfortunate these things happen. We are trying to stop or be away from firing at the people. Otherwise, we are good at firing. Now, we are trying to, without firing, we want to use minimum force and control. But it's very young boys and very young people got involved in this. But there is some hand behind this also.
A motion of no confidence against the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Rishad Batudin, was submitted to the Speaker today.
The motion of no confidence was presented by a group of MPs, including MP Uday Gammanpila, including 10 allegations against the minister. The motion was signed by 64 MPs in the opposition. MPs Nishantha and Prasanna Ranatunga, who are currently overseas, have written to the Speaker informing him of their support for the motion. MPs Ananda Aludgamage and Ashok Priyantha, who crossed over to the opposition from the United National Party, have also signed the motion. Former SLFP MPs S.V. Disanayaka, Tilanga Sumitipala, Nishantha Muthuhettigama and Dilan Pereira have signed the motion of no confidence. The motion was also signed by Venerable Aturaliye Ratanathera and S. Vyalendran. However, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa has not signed the motion of no confidence.
If this motion of no confidence is successful, the minister who was interfering the terrorist investigations will lose his power. If the motion is defeated, the true face of the so-called patriots will be revealed to the nation. The people will make a decision on them at the coming elections.
The
Sri Lankan Freedom Party has not taken a decision. There are two opinions in the joint opposition as well regarding this motion.
The OIC of the Vellampitiya Police filed a complaint with the Judicial Service Commission over the incident of granting bail to 9 workers who were arrested at the Vellampitiya copper factory owned by a suicide bomber responsible for the April 21st attacks.
Vellampitiya OIC Gamini Hevavithana in the complaint notes, police requests court to deny bail to the suspects. He says the oral and written submissions made by police were not included into the magistrate's records. 9 copper factory workers were arrested by the Vellampitiya police and another was arrested by the police STF. The suspects, who were in remand custody for 14 days upon being presented to court, 9 of them were released on bail. At the time, police informed court the suspects had used between 2 to 8 SIM cards and were paid 30,000 rupees per month as a salary. The police report further said the men spent most of their time outside the copper factory, visiting Colombo and its surrounding urban areas, adding their rent was over 30,000 rupees. Presenting facts as per the provisions of the Bail Act, police requested court to deny bail to the suspects. When Colombo Additional Magistrate Priyantali Anage questioned police under which act were the suspects investigated, police said it will be announced at the next hearing as the probe was underway. However, the 9 suspects were released on 2 sureties of 500,000 rupees each. We saw the IGP or the government saying that they are conducting an investigation over the incident where bail was granted to the suspects who were arrested at the copper factory in Vellampitiya. What is happening now is that they are trying to put the blame on the lower level officials. Now, when the OIC was going to be blamed for this to save the dignity of his uniform, he has gone to the Judicial Services Commission against the magistrate. If the law in the country is being implemented properly, an OIC need not go to the Judicial Services Commission asking for justice for the country. Next, we must look if there was a political hand operating behind this, because right now this discussion has moved towards foreign nations. A few days ago, we heard one story and today we are hearing a different story. It seems like they are passing the buck amongst each other. This is highly suspicious. This issue being tossed to and fro between these people only create more suspicion among the general public of the country. Conduct an investigation into this immediately. Intervene and reveal to the country what exactly happened. Reveal to the people the names of the wrongdoers. If this does not happen, we know for sure that this issue will continue to create more suspicion among the general public.
විවිධ විරෝධයන් එල්ල වෙන ගැටලුවක් බවට පත් වෙනවා.
Indian man who was living in Sri Lanka without a valid visa was arrested from Negombo, Kandy.
The anti-corruption unit of the Kandy police division said the suspect was arrested while residing in a rented house in Negombo. The suspect had visited Sri Lanka on business visa and remained in the country without a valid visa from the 15th of February this year. The 46-year-old Palestinian is a resident of Qatar. He was remanded until the 27th of May after being produced before the Kandy magistrate.
A businessman named Mohammed Rilwan, suspected of maintaining close connections with a group of terrorists responsible for the April 21st attacks, has been arrested in Mabola, Wattala.
Security forces arrested a suspect alleged to have maintained close connections with a respective terror group yesterday. The suspect is identified as Mohammed Rizwan. The arrest was made based on a tip-off received by the intelligence officers of the Western Province. The suspect is a resident of Mabola, Wattala. Security forces also seized multiple passports in his possession. Currently, he is being held for further interrogation.
The
police media spokesperson also explained the measures that will be taken with regard to those arrested in connection with the recent tense situations.
Investigations into the recent unrest and tense situations in the northwestern provinces and Minuwangada areas are currently underway. Curfew will not be imposed on any area of the country today. Even though curfew will not be imposed, the general public should not take things lightly. When any of those responsible for such violent behavior request for a police report to travel overseas for employment or other purposes, the police report will be provided, clearly stating that this individual was previously arrested. In addition, employers of those arrested have been informed in this regard so that disciplined action can be taken against them.
An event was held in Negombo to provide compensation to the families of the victims of the terror attack at the St. Sebastian's Church in Katua, Pitia.
More than 100 family members of victims were invited to this ceremony to receive the compensation from the Minister of Tourism Development, Wildlife and Christian Religious Affairs, John Amaratunga. Although the ceremony was due to commence at 10:30 a.m., the invitees arrived at the ceremony half an hour later. Many others expressed their displeasure.
මේ වගේ අවස්ථාවකදී අපිට මෙහෙම ඉන්න අමාරුයි.
ඇත්තටම තුවාලේ තියෙන මනුස්සයා තමයි වේදනාව තියෙන්නේ. බැංකු විස්තර ඔක්කොම ගත්තා නම් ඒක ඇත්තටම කෙලින්ම බැංකුවකට හරි ඒක දාන්න තිබ්බා. ඒ ග්‍රාම නිලධාරී මට්ටමින් ඒක අපිට දැනුවත් කරන්න තිබ්බා. ඇයි මෙහෙම වදයක් දෙන්නේ?
Amidst the displeasure of all who were gathered, Mr. John Amaratunga handed compensation to the families of 89 individuals who were killed in the terror attacks. 130 individuals who were injured in the attacks were also awarded with compensation at this ceremony.
How did we create this situation? That's a wrong statement. We did not do this. This was done by an international organization, something called IS. They have issued threats to other countries, not only Sri Lanka.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Tilak Marapana met with US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today. Now, according to the official website of the U.S. State Department, the meeting took place this morning at 9:30 U.S. time. When News First inquired from the Foreign Ministry officials, said that the minister had left the U.S. and a number of bilateral discussions will be held. However, the ministry added that the subjects that will be discussed cannot be revealed to the media at this point of time. In more news, leader of the JP, Kumar Dissanayake, expressed these views at a media briefing in Colombo. Racism and extremism is the most popular political agenda at this time. But national unity is the most suitable one. Without national unity, we cannot assure the security of the general public. Even before this tension, the United States clearly had an intervention into the economic, political and military spheres of our country. After the recent incidents, they have intensified talks on intervention. If Tilak Marapana, who is currently in the US, agrees to such a disastrous agreement, we say to Tilak Marapana that there is no point of view coming back to Sri Lanka. So there is a need for a well-informed intervention from everyone. And that is to create a new force which is able to establish national unity, economic development, democracy and good governance in our country. Honorable Kumar Dissanayake expressed these views at a Satyagraha campaign held opposite the Viharma Devi Park under the theme of creating national unity for public security.
Convener of the Maubima Venuwen Ranaviru organisation, Attorney-at-Law Ajith Prasanna, arrived at the Criminal Investigations Department today to hand over a letter regarding Namal Kumara, who was arrested recently.
Namal Kumara is kept here for not any other reason than to show that when it comes to the assassination attempt case on the president, that Namal Kumara is a liar. They are trying to create a background to throw away the case of the assassination attempt. An armory was found in the Uva Kuda Oya. There were 4 sniper weapons. The Muslim national who was arrested in Devala is the owner of these weapons. His son is the pilot of the airplane that showered flowers on Madhush's father's funeral. There was a connection with Markandri Madhush and the president's assassination attempt and the East. Now marksmen were also found near the Uva Kuda Oya. Why do they need 4 snipers? It is clear that this is an assassination attempt of a very important person. Therefore, we were ready to reveal all of these at court on the 21st. That is when Namal Kumara was arrested. This is a conspiracy.
MP Sunil Handunethi expressed the following views during a meeting held in Hingragoda.
How did the shop owned by a Muslim in Minuwangoda suddenly be destroyed after 3 weeks? Who is behind this? They say Madhu Madhava passed that area. While passing the area, he witnessed the large crowds gathered and got out of his vehicle. Namal Kumara from Ampara, the operations director of Maitripala's anti-corruption force, suddenly appears in Hettipola. Apparently he was on his way to Arachikatua, maybe to look into some corrupt activities. If Namal Kumara is the so-called head of the anti-corruption force, name one corrupt activity that he has exposed till date. Then there are more individuals in some other forces as well. All of them are present here. I wonder whether Madhu Madhava went in search of a tune for his song. Think for a moment, to whom are they saying such things? Can such remarks be made to the general public? It's a shame that the government is using this situation for their own benefit. Security forces say that they are currently in the process of resolving this issue. However, this statement is not sufficient for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister does not accept such statements. What does he say? The Prime Minister says that this attack is part of a global terrorism program. Therefore, the laws in the country are not sufficient to defeat them. If sufficient laws were in place, we could have defeated them. He says since this was part of a global terrorist attack, international laws must be in place. Therefore, the Counter-Terrorism Act must be brought forward immediately. This is what he continues to stress on.
He knew they went to Syria, they joined the terrorist organ, but in our country to go abroad and return or to take part in a foreign armed uprising is not an offence here.
To join a terrorist, is Islamic State a terrorist group according to...
It's a terrorist group.
And they joined this terrorist group?
They joined a terrorist group, but we have no laws which enable us to take into custody people who join foreign terrorist groups. We can take those who are in, who are who belong to terrorist groups operating in Sri Lanka. Whether you go to Syria, whether you join the French Foreign Legion, it's the same.
Foreign Legion is a terrorist organisation.
I know, but as far as we are concerned, you go out and take arms. There's no law to prevent you from that, or for us to prosecute. But if you take arms against the Sri Lankan government, the Sri Lankan state, yes. So that's a lacuna in our law.
Bin Ladenගේ leadership එක ගැව්ව පස්සේ ඒකලංගිලා අෆ්ගාන එකෙන් අත්තන කොට අරගෙන එනවා.
After attacks were launched in 2001 by Osama bin Laden, they made arrests from Afghanistan. Then there were questions as to how these arrests were made. Because the UN declares that if international terrorists attack a country, that particular country can arrest them in other foreign countries, or Afghanistan can make the arrests. That means if there are international terrorists in Sri Lanka, America or India, or especially the Sri Lankan government can arrest them. We can arrest them based on that. Also, a parliamentarian, the judges, lawyers, we take an oath saying that we will not engage in any terrorism in Sri Lanka or overseas. So if Sri Lankans are engaging in terrorism overseas, then they can be arrested. Also, the Prevention of Terrorism Act says this.
A person who is involved in the terrorist activities can be arrested. Any person can be.
This can be a foreign matter. Do you think that Ranil Wickremesinghe did not know this?
Any person can meaning ඔබතුමා හිතනවාද රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා?
A market constructed in Suryawava, Hambantota, in line with the Samata Sahana program, was vested in the public today under the auspices of the Deputy Leader of the UMP, Ajith Premadasa, and Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Patali Champika Ranawaka.
Following a request made by Minister Ajith Premadasa from Minister Patali Champika Ranawaka, this market was constructed with a cost of 100 million rupees. The minister also distributed equipment for performing art institutions and community organizations in the area in line with the event.
When Parliament convenes next week, we must initiate the introduction of new laws required to make changes in higher education institutes which are not suitable for our country, as well as to eradicate terrorism, extremism and religious insanity. The banning of institutions and enforcement of laws under the emergency law will only be valid as long as the emergency law is there. We must work towards building a country that will maintain peace and harmony on a permanent basis. This is the duty and responsibility of the government.
In order to destroy IS and terrorism from Sri Lanka, extremism, radicalism and communal differences must be eradicated from our country. Regardless of religion and nationality, we must put a stop to extremism. Death penalty should be imposed on anyone involved in any terrorist activity or anyone abating terrorism, regardless of their position.
මරණීය දණ්ඩනය ලබා දෙන්නට කාලය එළඹිලා තිබෙනවායි කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ නොබියවම ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna convened a media briefing today.
We saw Minister Patali's Jatikamaga. That's the film Patali 3. He was in Mahinda Rajapaksa's government and never pointed out a fault in their government. By November 2014, he had enjoyed all his comforts in Mahinda Rajapaksa's government and then accused Mahinda Rajapaksa's rule and then got together with Maithripala Sirisena and made good governance victorious as Patali 2. Now he is there in this government for 4 years. When he is in the government, there was a massive scam that took place in the central bank, a first in the world. Then after that, corruptions in the coal industry took place. The Hambantota port, which was an important place in the Silk Route, was sold. Now they enjoy all the comforts of the government while introducing harmful acts to the country. When the Good Governance United National Party is being washed off, Champika Ranawaka is getting ready to play his drum in order to save them. We especially convey the message to the general public to not to be deceived by face masks of Patali Champika Ranawaka.
In other local news, the cooperative wholesale establishment says that its main office complex situated at Vauxhall Street, Colombo, has only been legally rented out to institutions that are under the ministry.
The general manager of the cooperative wholesale establishment issuing a communique under the letterhead of the ministry states that there are no secret rooms on the 8th floor of the building or any other location. The communique adds that the current minister uses the same room used by his predecessors, which is located on the 8th floor of the building. The general manager also stated that the building and the office was searched by the police and the army on 2 occasions following requests made by the institution. The communique added claims that security of the building has not been ensured are baseless statements.
A group of Muslim politicians and social activists convened a media briefing today.
3 months ago, a group of individuals from the Mavanadla electorate that I represent vandalized 3 Buddhist statues. On behalf of the Muslim community, together with the police, we arrested one suspect in connection to the incident. One night, my secretary was shot in his head while sleeping. He is fighting for his life even today. Likewise, I may face a similar threat. However, I have not stepped backwards. We may have several faults. There may be faults from our end that shattered the trust between all of us. Therefore, we must change this. We are prepared to make this change as a community.
Madrasas should be regulated and an act should be brought forward in this regard. We should be aware of the syllabus taught in the madrasa. Be informed of those who teach that madrasas. We must be informed of the source from which the funds are received. The Jamaat-e-Ulama request from the Muslim community to refrain from wearing the burqa, even before the government decided to, citing security threats in the country. As the Muslim community, I believe we have a major responsibility. Certain steps must be initiated by the Muslim community itself.
The Muslim community has no involvement in these attacks. I urge everyone to refrain from nourishing terrorism and extremism. Let's make this an opportunity to rebuild our national identity.
Are we to highlight our differences and hand over a future filled with conflict to our future generation, or identify the similarities within all religions and hand over a peaceful country to the next generation is the biggest challenge. We must decide. Should we allow our country to be destroyed by falling prey to narrow political objectives or agendas of the international community or trade wars? We must think long term. We must think of the future of our country in more depth. I urge all religious leaders, political leaders and the media to think positively to build a country with a bright future to our future generation.
The European Union called on the government to ensure the rule of law is upheld and the law is applied equally to all instigators and perpetrators of communal violence.
The letter states that the EU is concerned about the recent incidences of communal violence that has occurred following the April 21st attacks. The letter adds that they welcome the arrests made in connection with the violence, and it calls on the Sri Lankan government to uphold the rule of law and apply equality to all instigators and perpetrators of communal violence. It adds clear leadership as well as the wholesale rejection of hate and violence are of paramount importance. The EU calls on political, religious and other community leaders to continue to speak out against violence and all those inciting unrest and distrust, and make every effort to promote understanding and harmony between communities. The letter finally states that it is the duty of Sri Lankan citizens and the media to ensure that misinformation is not shared, which can potentially lead to more incidences of violence. The EU made the statement in agreement with the embassies of France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Romania and the UK High Commission, as well as the embassies of Norway and Switzerland.
Minister of Plantation Industries Naveen Dissanayake expressed the following views at a media briefing yesterday.
They call traditional Islam or conservative Islam, I don't know. But government has to be alive and sensitive to the very extremist form of Wahhabism that is coming from certain countries. So I think just like the Western countries that have been affected by this, our country also, unfortunately, is affected by this extreme form of ideology that is emanating from some countries in the Middle East, who are also friendly countries towards Sri Lanka. So I am very confident that we can have a dialogue with these countries to curb this form of extremism that is coming from certain different Muslim sects in those countries.
A weekend newspaper reported on the incident where attempts were made to transfer money due to Sri Lanka Cricket for the granting of broadcasting rights to another account based on a report compiled by an audit firm.
The weekend newspaper reported that the attempts made to transfer money due to Sri Lanka Cricket for the granting of broadcasting rights to another account was a cyber crime. This is according to a report compiled by an audit firm that looked into the incident at Sri Lanka Cricket. The audit of Sri Lanka Cricket is currently in its final stages. It is being reported that Parliament is due to receive the audit report next week. They say when Minister Pfizer was in charge, attempts were made to take out $5 million. Yes, attempts were made. If we were there, we wouldn't have even made the attempt. It was said that $185,000 was sent overseas, but we brought the money back, and we still do not know if it was a cyber attack, because we have not suffered a loss. But why are these things happening? Problems have arisen as to if precautionary methods are being prepared to follow in the light of these events which are reported. In addition to this, there is also a question if the officials at SLC are attempting to cover up their mistakes with another report while the internal forensic audit is still ongoing. The newspaper further reports that the email sent related to the fake banking account has been sent by the email account of the head of the finance department. However, the identity of the computer used for this remains a mystery. Furthermore, according to the audit report, it does not state that this was a cyber attack. We have clear evidence that this was sent from our email server. This is why we want to go ahead with this and conduct an investigation from an independent authority, especially from the Cybercrimes Division. We have clear evidence that this system was not hacked.
And with that, wrap up news for tonight.
Good night and take care.